Hey, good afternoon to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm having a couple of technical difficulties. So do me a favor, give me a little sound check. Let me know you're able to see and hear me. Yeah, Bob, I'm checking that myself just to kind of track on this. Let me just see a sound check that we're good to go. And we're going to start rocking and rolling. Apologize for the bump. Sometimes it happens. Bob, I think cool means we're good to go. So I'm gonna get jumping into today's training. It's around how to plan for your success. And by the numbers, that's my goal of today's training. I really want to just talk to you about the numbers from a high level that we're looking at. Right. I put this thing into the details of the event when I put it out there over the weekend to let people know about it. But this idea that if you get in a car and you just start driving in any direction, you're going to make progress, right? But you're going to go nowhere near where you need to go because you haven't determined a destination. And without that destination, you're just going to be floundering. You're just going to be driving everywhere. It'll appear like you're doing the right thing. And the idea out there is, when you're pushing forward with activity and you don't have a particular goal in mind, you haven't set a destination like on a car trip, then your efforts will just be really a lot of effort, but it's not going to sit there and help you get anything that you want. In government contracting, it's the same thing. In sales and business, we need to set our numbers, right? And so we need to have a clear revenue goal, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But this idea of setting a goal and then knowing the numbers that back up from that to today. A revenue goal tends to be tomorrow, far out there. But what am I doing today? What do I need to have in place today? And then knowing your numbers allows you to then put metrics on top of it. If you look at the numbers, the other thing that's great about numbers is when you have these numbers and you know them, they're leading indicators to your success. So you can look back here and you can say, well, I don't have the revenue yet that I have set for my goal, but I have these metrics, these numbers, and I can see that I'm doing the right thing way back here that will lead to the revenue and the success I'm looking for. So thanks everybody for that 5x5 clear. I appreciate that. So we're going to dive into talking about this. And I just put step by step, and you'll see what I mean by it's like phase by phase or something. But what I really wanted to talk about is the numbers, right? How to look at the numbers. I'm going to break down today's training into these 4 parts. First thing I just want to lay out is kind of the path to revenue. Not an official formal term, but when you see me get there, it's like, well, what you do this step, and then this step, and then this step. Understanding these basic high-level steps will help you understand the path to revenue. The second thing I'm going to talk about are assumptions that I put on this path. I want you to create your own assumptions coming out of this training. You can use mine, right? Mine are really good baseline assumptions. But eventually you'll have your own assumptions for your company, and I'll give you the guidance on how to do that. The third thing I'm going to talk about is really how to know your numbers, and so I'll take a stab at showing you an example of putting numbers in place, and then I'll show you a higher level look at those numbers as well. So I'm going to use an example, let's say 1.2 million, but I'll show you how to go below that and much higher above that. And the last thing is I want you to understand how you have revenue goals, these dollar numbers that you're putting out there. But FTE counts is a huge one, and I really like that for when I do my planning. And so I want to give you a little insight into how I see that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I am co-founder of GovCon in the Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner after coming out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. That is really the purpose of today's training, is to lay out how do you have that predictable result coming out of your activity. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn or subscribed to Government Contracting Success newsletter, our newsletter, make sure you do so. On LinkedIn, especially Bob over on YouTube and anybody else on Twitter and YouTube, Facebook, come on into LinkedIn, because in LinkedIn, we're able to engage with each other. You'll see people in the chat that you can interact with. And then the last thing is I just wanted to point out tomorrow's training. Tomorrow's training, I'm going to go back into Doge. You'll hear me talking a lot about Doge as we go forward in the months. But tomorrow I'm going to be talking about, will Doge kill the small business program? And I'll give you a spoiler alert. I think it is definitely at risk. I'm not here to debate whether it should or not at the moment, and I got opinions on that too. What I am going to talk about though is if Doge does come for the small business programs like women-owned small business certifications, how can you prepare and what can you do when that happens? That's what tomorrow's training is about. So make sure you come register for that. If you haven't already done so, give a shout out to our 100 Club members, and then go check your own federal visibility score at GovCon in a Box. This federal visibility score is a score on 0 to 100. How visible are you to federal buyers? This is how visible are you on their tools. I want to congratulate these companies. And by the way, if you're in the 100 Club, let me know in the chat. It's always great to see you here. The other thing is, let me know how you'd like to see the slide go, because I'm almost at 200 companies in there. And I do like doing showcase, et cetera. So somebody later, give me tips on how I might be able to shout out the 100 Club without it getting so tiny at some point people can't see. I think this is like 6 or 8 point font, so it's beyond seeing. Go to GovCon in a Box to check your score out. I have this handout, and I'm actually going to refresh it for 2025. You feel free to do a screen capture, but it's a little older. In fact, let me zoom it there. I'll be so nice, and I'll get rid of my face. And if you want, you can take a screen capture, and I'll pause there. Don't worry, you can come back later on it. But this is a great handout I've used in the past to explain federal revenue paths. But I wanted to do it differently today. Today, I wanted to tackle it with a new approach and just a basic set of bullets. I was trying to figure out, how do I explain these numbers, which are, they're fairly complicated in the beginning. Once you start getting a handle on it, you're like, oh, it's nothing, right? But everything is something in the beginning. And I was trying to figure out, well, how can I explain this in a way that anybody, whether you're in a brand new company or a $1 billion company, you can understand your numbers. Because even if you're in a $1 billion company, you still have your own, your revenue is basically your sales goal. So you kind of map it to that. But let me walk you through what I describe as the path to revenue. And let me just I just want to track my clock so I make sure I end on time. Okay, so there's, don't read a lot into this. This is the way I like simplifying. I took a huge set of processes, almost 100 plus process steps, and refined it down into a 7-step process for federal revenue success. Well, the pipeline, I kind of do the same thing. So these 5 steps begin with, these are all about opportunities, right? You're trying to get revenue, so it's all about opportunities and sales. So the first thing you have is unqualified opportunities. This is what I call it. A lot of us call them similar things, a little different, but basically we all call it the same. But these are unqualified opportunities. And basically, you think these are a fit for your company. You look at some basic information you see on a long-range acquisition forecast or in SAM or on a contract vehicle. You do a quick, less than 30-second review, and you're like, yeah, that looks like a fit for us. Let me add it to my pipeline, right? I'm a big fan of the minute you say it looks like a fit, you add it to your pipeline. So you track your efforts from that moment forward. Even if you abandon it later, that's totally fine. You want to learn why you abandon it, so it helps you identify better early on. So the minute you identify an opportunity that you like, I think that's a fit for us, then you put it into the pipeline. And by the way, I don't know if I talk about this more later, but you want to have a clear, focused offer that gives you, clear focus offer is what you sell. It gives you the criteria for what is a slam dunk opportunity for my company, for your company, right? And so an unqualified opportunity should still be a slam dunk. I look at that and I go, oh, SharePoint. I do SharePoint. Sounds good. Let me move it in. Then I move into the qualified stage. And so a qualified opportunity, and I'm not trying to really lay out the pipeline stages too much for those of you who got a little more experience here. The qualified opportunities, these are a fit for your company. So unqualified is, I think they're a fit. Qualified is, they are a fit for us. And so they're solidly in our pipeline. They're slam dunk opportunities. We think we can win. And now we start doing capture, right? We start going after it. Inside of a sales pipeline, some companies have more stages between qualified and proposal, but I don't actually care about those because I actually hate them. Not just I don't care about them. I think they're really mechanical. I think people should be bidding or no bidding their opportunities on a daily basis. If a capture person has so many opportunities, they can't no bid it in a single day on all their opportunities, then they got too much in the pipeline. And if a company has that much in a pipeline, they need to revisit that and say, well, if we can't even bid no bid, then how can we actually do capture? That's a little side box, but basically, if it's a qualified opportunity, you have determined that this is a slam dunk opportunity for you and you want to move it forward through capture, doing all that. So let's assume all that happens. And the next major milestone is writing a proposal, right? So you're sending proposals out. And you're going to see why I'm talking about these, because all these need to have numbers to them. That's why it's really important to me. So proposals are responses, quotes, whatever. Those lead to sales, and sales lead to revenue. So let's put assumptions around this path, if you will. So in this particular case, if we go back to qualified opportunities, what you've got to come up with your own number. For easy math, I just said 50% of the opportunities that you put into the pipeline will move forward to qualified. 50% of them you will abandon. You will sit there and say, oh, it turns out it's not real, or I called the government, it was canceled, or I looked at it deeper and it's like, well, I thought it was SharePoint, but SharePoint was just like 1/10 of the work, and the other 90% was like, rocket science or something. It's like, that's not a fit for me. So what I'm saying is 1 out of every 2 unqualified opportunities that you have identified will move forward. So that's that 50% will move forward. So, let's just use 100. I just moved 50 opportunities forward. So now in qualified, I have 50 opportunities. And what I'm suggesting is that of the opportunities you have in there that you really like, they are a fit for your company. After you do the capture and after you see what the incumbents are doing or competitors are doing or whatever bandwidth you have, only 50% of those will move forward. And so 1 out of 2 qualified opportunities, we will write an opportunity for. And so if you're looking here and I said 100 unqualified opportunities move forward, come into our pipeline, 50 unqualifieds will become qualified, 25 qualified, we will write a proposal. And these numbers, you can use your own stats, right? I like very basic numbers, and then I watch the data and I refine my numbers based on actual data and evidence. But it's okay to just pick any random best practice number. And so I'm using 50%, 50%, and then 25. And so then if I go forward to proposals, what I'm saying is if I submit 4 proposals, 1 out of every 4 will win. I will have a 25% chance of winning my proposals out there. You can call it a win rate. And so you want to know what your win rate is. How many proposals do I need to submit in order to win? And I would tell you, if it's higher than 4, you need to look at your process. If you can't win 1 out of every 4 proposals that you submit, then something in your process is off that you could fix to improve that, right? It's totally okay to be 1 out of 10 as long as you're trying to get to 1 out of 9 and 1 out of 8 and down to 1 out of 4. I think 1 out of 3 is pretty unrealistic, right? Just because there's so much competition. You could be the very best, but I guarantee you there's 3 other companies that are the very best as well. And same thing for my entire career, right? There's always somebody who's equal, sometimes unfortunately better. But so 25% of your proposals move forward. So I had 100 and then 50 and then 25. And so now I'm saying whatever 25% of 12 is, right? So then what I'm saying, as you move forward into sales, I'm using an assumption based on my business model, right? I do IT services or professional services in the past. And so I always was pursuing 5-year contracts. 1-year base, 4-year option. That's pretty typical in the government. Yes, it shifts around, and that's totally fine. You find out what your average is. But for me, the reason I say this is it's a 5-year period of performance. That meant only 20% of the sales will count towards my annual revenue goals. Hopefully that makes sense, and I'll use it in a minute. And then the last stage, there's no real assumption with the revenue. It's like, yay, we got it. So let's move on and look at the actual numbers and start diving into those. Oh, before I do, I just want to thank the sponsors of today's live. We do this every single day. I come back every single day, and it's because of companies like Graham, Steel Toed, Silk River that we're able to make this happen. And so check these companies out, show them your support. If you're looking for staffing or ASL services, talk to Graham. If you're looking at CMMC or cybersecurity, Steel Toed's right there for you. And Silk River Capital, they do loans. I also wanted to point out, if you know anybody looking for a job, because I have such tools in place, the ability to bring people together, I'm working with Graham and Sea Hill Consulting Group to be able to put on this networking event. So if you know people are looking for a job, tell them we got a networking event. We'd love to have them in there and try to help them get their next job. Okay, let's talk about the numbers here. The numbers, I thought I would have, I lost my animation. That's too bad. Let me see if my animation comes better. Come on, I never knew my animation would be gone. That's disappointing. Okay, well, do me a favor. Do this with me. Don't do it yourself. Go to the bottom bullet, revenue, because if my animation was working, I would have worked my way up from the bottom. But what I want you to see is that I said, and let's say this is net new revenue. What it means is let's say I have no revenue, or I'm at 10 million and now I want to go to 11.2 million or something, right? So I need net new revenue into my company of $1.2 million. That's revenue at the bottom there. So let me pause that really quick. So I've set my revenue goal. And now if I back up and I look at this and I say, well, I have a 5-year period of performance on my contracts typically. That means if I get a sale with the Department of Army, it's going to be a 5-year contract. And in order for me to get 1.2 million, I need the contract to be worth 6 million. Now I'm using easy math. That could be 6 $1 million contracts spread out of, over 5 years each, right? So there's all sorts of variations in there. I'm using this as if I won one sale that delivered me $6 million in order for me to get $1.2 million. That's not really how it works. We tend to have multiple sales that add up to our revenue goals. But you get the math. That's what I'm trying to do, is come from the bottom. I have a revenue goal, and then my 5-year period of performance, or multiplying the revenue goal times 5, gives me my sales goal, right? And coming up above that, remember that I win 1 out of every 4 proposals that I submit. And so if I want to get $6 million, 4 times 6 million is $24 million. So I need to submit to the government $24 million in proposal value. Now, the one thing I did put here is that the maximum total contract value, meaning if I win a single contract, when I do my numbers and I'm looking at my sales pipeline, I can never count an opportunity for more than the total contract value that I'm trying to aim for right here, $6 million. What this means is I can't sit there and say, well, I need to submit $24 million and I just submit 1 proposal. Well, I've lost my 1 out of 4 ratio, right? And so I need to submit at least 4 proposals. And that's why I write here, minimum 4 needed, minimum 4 proposals going out the door. And by the way, this is very, very simple math. I actually say you should be writing 40 proposals a year. That's a whole different training. But I'm just trying to get you to use the math, right? How many, if you back this up, you need to look at the proposal value, the value of the responses you have done, and you've given prices to the government. Those prices should all add up to 24 million in order for you to have a chance at getting $6 million in sales and 1.2 million in revenue, right? This is also very dependent on you making sure every opportunity is a slam dunk opportunity. That means it was absolutely written for your company. You're like, oh my gosh. And so if you're newer, much newer to government contracting, make sure you're subcontracting. That's how we get the experience to begin to get the government to want to buy from us. Okay, so we're coming up the path. If I need $24 million in proposal contract value being written and going out the door, then when you look at qualified opportunities, I said 1 out of every 2 opportunities that are in the qualified stage will move forward to writing a proposal, right? And remember, I'm skipping the in-between capture stages for the moment. So that means I need 48 million great opportunities in the pipeline, $48 million in order for me to be assured that half that will move forward to the proposal stage, which will be 24 million and so on, right? And so in that qualified stage, it's the same thing. No opportunity, even if I have an opportunity in there worth 10 or $50 million, when I'm doing all my math and adding things up, I'm only counting any single opportunity up to the $6 million value. It cannot count beyond that. So if you win it, it's great. It's a bonus, but that's a conservative way of going after your pipeline. So I need $48 million of contract value, right? If I'm looking at the opportunities I have in my pipeline, I'm adding up all the estimated pricing, basically, it's going to add up to $48 million. And then the same thing here. I need 8 proposals related to that. 8 times 6 should be 48, right? And the same thing on qualified opportunities. Remember, I said, unqualified opportunities. I said that only 50% of them move forward. And so basically what that means is 2 times 48 million is 96 million. And I've got the same math going, total contract value. Nothing can count for more than 6 million. So that means I need at least 16 opportunities in my pipeline that are unqualified to move forward. Now, again, this is very simple math. Most likely, I will not have, if I'm going after 1.2 million in revenue, I'm not going after for one win. I'm probably going after, 500,000 or 600,000 or 300,000, right? And I might double these numbers. So I might need 32 unqualified opportunities or even 64, which is not unreasonable. When you think about the amount of opportunities that are out there, you just got to find the right ones. And don't forget, subcontracting is an opportunity in your pipeline as well. You could be on somebody else's team. Hopefully this made sense to you. I'm happy to share this again. This is keep this in mind, very, very fast training on something that could easily go 4 to 8 hours. So let me just show you this from a broader standpoint. Here, I use the exact same situation. I just got rid of all the writing. But here's the 1.2 million in the middle, right? So those are the same numbers. But if I was trying to get 200,000, right? And that's a really good thing to have in your head. If I'm trying to get 200,000 just from this one agency, because you could do this math across multiple agencies. If I was trying to get 200,000, then I'm multiplying it coming up, and I can see that I need at least 16 million of total contract value. Same thing if I'm doing 5 million or 10 million, the math is there for you when you use the assumptions. So you don't have to use my assumptions. You have to look at mine. If I back up one more, okay, 2 more. If I back up here, these numbers, you want to sit there and begin to have your own assumptions out there. Okay, so let me come down. This is that. And then the last thing I just want to talk about is, so I talked about revenue numbers, and I'm happy, shoot me a message if you got a question about what I taught. But the last thing I wanted to say is, if I'm going after 1.2 million and I'm building this company called Nancy Co. on the side, just on YouTube, just to show people how to go from nothing, no company or anything, to $1 million in revenue in 12 months. And so I'm trying to show the path by me actually doing it. Instead of me just teaching, I'm actually doing it, right? And so anyways, for me, for Nancy Co., when I build that thing on the side, I'm not going to go out and get prime contracts. It's not worth it to me. It's not what I teach, And so I'm looking at subcontracts. Well, if I'm looking at subcontracts, I'm actually a little bit less concerned about total contract value, and I'm more concerned about FTEs. And the reason is because I can align an FTE to a prime contractor. If I have a prime contractor I can work with, then I know I can get 1 FTE with them. I might be able to get 10 FTEs with them, but I know if I've got a prime contractor, then I automatically got 1 FTE if I'm doing services type work. And so what I want you to do is, if you think about this, right, you think you're trying to get to 1.2 million. Let's say that's the number I'm going after. Well, the first thing I need to do is go, what's my average billable rate? I think my average billable rate could easily be $200,000 a year, but I'm just being conservative and saying $100,000 a year. And by the way, in very, very rough math, that's $50 an hour. Basically, if I charge $50 an hour, I can sit there and double it and say that's $100,000 in revenue, right? It's a little around there, but basically that's really easy math for me to do. That way I go, well, can I bill out somebody doing the work I want to do at $50 an hour? Oh yeah, I can do that. It's like, okay, then I can guarantee that person's going to bring in $100,000 in revenue. So that one full-time equivalent employee is going to be bringing in $100,000 a year. I want a 1.2 net new revenue goal to be hit. In order for me to get $1.2 million from billable employees who are on my team, I need 12 of them, right? If $100,000 revenue comes from 1 employee, 12 employees will get me $1.2 million. This is very simple math, right? I'm not trying to make it super sophisticated. I'm actually trying to make it super easy to understand. But now I look at that and I go, like I said here, FTEs to reach my revenue goal, I need 12. I've talked 50 to 100 times in past trainings about how to build relationships, how to go out and find strategic relationships, companies that are big enough that they could bring you on as a subcontractor. And so easy relationships, what I would say is, I'm pretty positive that if I can find a good strategic relationship and work with them to get on their existing contracts or on new opportunities over the next 12 months, I can get 2 from a strategic relationship, right? Literally, I bet you I could go into the training today. I don't know how many people are live today, but I could go into the training today and I bet you I can find 6 companies that if I reach out and said, hey, I'm building this new company, could I work with you and try to identify opportunities? They'd be yes, right? And so all the administration stuff of a contract's gone. All I have to do is focus on helping them win or deliver on whatever we're doing, right? And so 6 strategic relationships I can forecast over the next 12 months will deliver me 2 FTEs on theirs. That gets me 1.2 million. The math is very simple. The phone calls are a little harder, right? You got to get out there and you got to do the work and you got to build the relationships. But imagine if you built these relationships and then they were in place for next year as you built a few more relationships or you got bigger with the existing relationships. You can really start taking off. I know companies that are doing $1 or $2 million, but they're doing $1 or $2 million together with GDIT or Leidos. And I am going to coach them and say, look, what you need to do is just first thing, go double your revenue inside that organization because it's big enough. But me, because I'm newer and I don't have that relationship, let's say, then I would just go find small businesses to do that. But anyways, that was a long way of getting back to saying you can set a revenue goal that's a realistic revenue goal of $1.2 million. And then you align it to FTEs. And then you align those FTEs to how many relationships do I need in order to hit my revenue goal. When you know your numbers, then you can begin to drive your activity based on those numbers. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First thing is make sure your revenue goal that you're setting is realistic, right? If you're larger, let's say 5 million and beyond, maybe it's 20% revenue goal. I don't want to hold you down, but you do want to set a realistic goal. Whatever you do, don't be a company that's smaller than 5 million trying to shoot for the moon, because what you do is you set people up for failure with a goal that's too big. It is better to have a smaller goal and hit it faster and then reset your goal. But make sure whatever your goal is realistic. For me, when I say I'm going to take Nancy Co to 1.2 million in a year or 1 million a year, that's not unrealistic. I have 40,000 relationships in 20, 30 years in government contracting. I know what I'm doing. I should be able to do it faster. If you're newer, set a more realistic goal. And then rewatch this training and set your own numbers. Put your own numbers in there: revenue, sales, proposals, qualified and unqualified. When you have those, you're really going to be able to drive forward. All right, if you're in the small business program, SBA's small business program, I got training for you tomorrow. Make sure you go register. I'd love to have you in there. Let other people know about that networking event if you would. And if you're looking for help in BD and capture, companies doing, let's say, 2 million plus, reach out to me. I'd love for my team and I to help you. Just remember that government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time. It's 12:30. I am out of here. Have a great day.